Welcome to the Contract Bank. I am business attorney Roxanne Smithers. So in this video, we are going to be discussing the Master Freelance Writing Services Agreement. It's a bit self-explanatory. We're going to be talking about the terms and conditions for freelance writers and their clients. Now, we've set this agreement up as a master agreement so that if you have an ongoing relationship with a specific client, that you do not have to have them sign a new contract every time they engage you for a project. You can simply use what we have at the end of this agreement, which is a services schedule or scope of work or scope of services that you can use for each individual project that you work on with a client without having to sign a new contract every single time. So with that in mind, we will get started and walk our way through this agreement. That first section in this agreement is the scope of services. It's going to give you some initial information about what you're going to be providing to your client, and it's really going to reference that schedule, because that schedule at the end of the agreement is what's going to have the details of the services for each individual project. Section 2 is going to discuss fees and expenses. It's going to provide a bit of the information about your right to be paid for your services, as well as whether or not your client will be responsible for reimbursing you for any expenses or costs that you incur above your fee in order to provide the services. Maybe there's a specific equipment that they want you to use. Maybe there's a specific software or format that they want you to use, subscription service to communicate with them that they want you to use. And you can negotiate that they will be responsible for reimbursing you for that cost or incurring that cost on their own. Section 3 covers any changes to the scope of work or the scope of services that the client is expecting from you. You always want to be on the lookout for scope creep, particularly when you are providing services on a flat fee, and make sure that if that scope starts to get larger or starts changing in ways that really impact your bottom line, that you make sure to utilize that opportunity to update that scope and make those changes, and so that you are paid accordingly. So the next section covers the services and responsibilities that you will have as the freelance writer, and details you providing your content, providing your deliverables, utilizing any client input or client information, and the timeline by which you will do that. Section 5 covers the responsibilities of the client. That means reviewing the information that you provide. That means providing client input in a timely manner. And that means complying with any legal obligations with regards to information or input that they provide to you to utilize, okay? Section 6 covers the delivery and acceptance process. This covers when deliverables will be due from you and the process by which your client has an opportunity to review those, send you any corrections, and or accept those deliverables, and really gives you a structure for that. Section 7 covers intellectual property rights. Who owns what in this process? The way the agreement is set up, it states that until you are paid in full for the amounts that are owed to you for your services, that you retain the intellectual property rights and ownership to the deliverables that you create. And then it details a process by which you will then transfer those rights or provide your client with a license for final deliverables. This provision also discusses who owns preliminary deliverables, drafts, outlines, any other things that you create as part of the process or path to get you to that final deliverable. Section 8 covers representations. This details and puts some limits on the warranties of the services that you're going to provide, put some limits on the promises, and gives the clients a realistic expectation of the deliverables, the impact of that content, and your services. Section 9 covers confidential information, and it details the fact that both parties will be required to maintain the confidential nature of information that they receive from the other party. Section 10 covers the duration or term of this agreement and also details the process by which either party can terminate the agreement. And finally, it also addresses what happens if you terminate the master agreement while there is still a schedule of services or scope of work pending between the parties. Section 11 limits your liability, and it does it in two ways. It puts a dollar amount cap on the amount of damages that you could be liable for if something goes wrong and there's a loss or an injury that the client suffers because of you. But it also puts a limit on the type of damages for which you may be held liable and responsible. So it's going to protect you in two ways. Section 12 covers indemnification. It's a mutual agreement, and essentially both parties are agreeing that to the extent the other party suffers a loss or damage that's your fault, that you'll be responsible for that. For example, if the client comes to you with content or a idea or information that they don't actually own the intellectual property rights to, and that is incorporated in your deliverable. If a claim is brought for copyright infringement or trademark infringement, the client will be responsible for reimbursing you for any losses or damages that you incur, and maybe even be required to step into your shoes and defend you if there's an actual legal action. Sections 13 and 14 detail the nature of the relationship. You are an independent contractor, free to work with other clients. Your client is free to work with other service providers, and this is not an exclusive relationship. Sections 15 and 16 cover the governing law that's going to apply to this contract, as well as the process that the parties may go through if they have a dispute. It includes an option for negotiation, then an option for mediation, and if all else fails, an option for arbitration. Section 17 covers the process by which the parties provide each other with notice in writing of any issues with regards to the contract or performance. Sections 18 and 19 are generally for a judge or jury or arbitrator in order to understand how to apply the terms of this agreement to your dispute. And then Section 20 makes it clear that the full nature of the relationship is covered in this contract. And that if the parties want to make changes to that relationship, both have to agree, and it has to be done in writing. At the end of the agreement, you're going to have that services schedule. This is where you're going to put the specifics of each individual project that you are doing for this client. Description of the services, the specific deliverables that are anticipated between the parties, and a time frame for performance and for those deliverables. We're then going to have the details of your payment, whether you're being paid by the hour for services, paid a flat fee for those services. We've included some information that puts a cap on the number of revisions that may be expected, and how you'll be compensated if the client wants additional revisions over that cap. The agreement gives you the opportunity to require a deposit from the customer or client, and details when payments will be due, as well as your hourly rate if the client is now seeking services that are beyond the original scope of work. Second to last in this agreement, it's going to detail the expenses or costs for which you expect to be reimbursed by the client, and you have the option to make any specific one-off modifications to the terms of this agreement that will apply just to this scope of work. So this is a general overview of the Master Freelance Writing Services Agreement. Thank you for visiting the Contract Bank. If you decide to purchase this agreement, you'll receive it as both a PDF as well as an editable Word document so that you can modify it to fit your needs. So thank you again for visiting the Contract Bank, and this is business attorney Roxanne Smithers.